It's the end of an era. Charlie Watts, the legendary drummer from the Rolling Stones, passed away at 80, and it was totally unexpected.
I knew he was ill, but I didn't know he was this ill.
Sure, he pulled out of the band's US tour for a health concern, but that was supposed to be temporary. The band was looking forward to his return and kicking off that tour, but now we'll never see him back. And that raises a lot of questions. The world mourns a legend. After the band's official statement about Charlie's death, outpourings of love came in from every corner of the world. He'll be remembered for more than music. As Elton John pointed out, we've lost a style icon and a brilliant man. He's not alone. The Who's frontman Roger Daltrey called Charlie the perfect gentleman and a sharp dresser, while Johnny Marr from the Smiths reminded us all how classy Charlie was. Even Bryan Adams noted what a gentleman the drummer was. Duran Duran also weighed in, along with OSSA's Liam Gallagher and Alice Cooper. But the hardest tributes to read were those from the Rolling Stones themselves. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards both shared wordless images, while Ringo Starr said what they were all thinking. Charlie will be missed, but we think Paul McCartney said it best.
Charlie was a rock and a fantastic drummer.
Did the music deafen the warning bells? When the Stones announced that Charlie wouldn't be joining them on tour, we were shook. But as they say, the show must go on, and the band announced that Steve Jordan would be filling in for Charlie. This wasn't Charlie's first major health concern. In 2004, he was diagnosed with throat cancer, even though he'd given up smoking decades before. Thankfully, after radiation treatment, he went into remission. Or did he? When Charlie's family announced his passing, they didn't mention a cause of death. Now concerned fans are wondering if his passing was because of the Big C. Honestly, death by smoking is a pretty rock and roll way to go, which is why it's weird because Charlie Watts wasn't your average rocker. The white sheep of the band. For the Rolling Stones, life really is all sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well, not really. While his bandmates were partying it up with groupies and generally being treated like naughty royalty, Charlie didn't enjoy it, but he tried. In 2012, he admitted, "I drank too much and took drugs, but I stopped it all. It didn't suit me, I'm not really like that." He wasn't. Charlie Watts was about as anti-rock as you could get, and we have proof. He was married to the same woman for half a century, which is unheard of in the music world. He also developed the sweet but unusual habit of sketching something odd. He told Rolling Stone magazine, "I've sketched every bed I've slept in on tour since about 1968. Best of all, Charlie earned an unusual reputation for his fashion sense. He was one of the world's best-dressed men, according to the Daily Telegraph, and Vanity Fair welcomed him to the International Best Dressed List Hall of Fame in 2006. As the band became more famous, Charlie tried to avoid the limelight. He once told an interviewer, "I don't know what showbiz is, and I've never watched MTV. It shows. Where else would you get a rock and roll legend who was clueless about partying but an expert in Georgian silver and vintage cars in his 16th century mansion?" Charlie Watts was a total enigma, and it definitely had something to do with how he was raised. The man behind the music. Charlie's music career didn't start with rock. It started with jazz. Sure, he played drums for all 30 of the Stones albums, but he never planned to. He was actually a graphic artist at an ad agency when he met Keith, Mick, Brian and Bill in 1963. At the time, he didn't even like rock music. He admitted to the BBC, "I never liked Elvis until I met Keith Richards. The only rock and roll I ever liked when I was young was Fats Domino." But he decided to try, even though he didn't really think they'd make it. In 2000, he told Observer, "I used to play with loads of bands, and the Stones were just another one. I thought they'd last 3 months, then a year, then 3 years. Then I stopped counting." When the Stones were at the height of their career, Charlie was into jazz in a big way, playing in a 32-piece band called the Charlie Watts Orchestra and the Charlie Watts Quintet. Rest in peace, Charlie Watts. You're already missed.